An eccentric old man suddenly realizes that the colt being auctioned might be a legendary steed, but no one else at the scene can see it. He immediately bids a high price, but unexpectedly, his landlord rival also takes a liking to the horse. The two bid frantically against each other, getting swept up in the heat of the moment. Ted refuses to back down and decides to gamble his entire livelihood. Seeing Ted's stubborn extravagance, his rival stops bidding. End of element. The landlord suddenly wears a wicked smirk, knowing this colt is only worth 10 guineas. Once Ted realizes what he has done, he is filled with regret. Using his status as the landlord, the rival demands that Ted pay his rent in advance, or he will reclaim his farmland. Having just bought the colt, Ted has no way to pay. He promises to plow the land with the horse and use the first harvest to pay the rent, but the landlord mocks him for trying to plow with such a thin horse. The moment Ted gets home, his wife finds out he spent their savings on this low-grade horse and urges him to return it. But Ted is extremely stubborn, and the horse ultimately stays. He then hurries to the stable, forcefully trying to put the plow collar on Joey. But Joey is clearly a wild, untamed horse, refusing to let Ted near him, and even kicking him to the ground. Ted instantly loses his temper and, in a fit of rage, pulls out a shotgun to kill Joey. His wife and his son Albert stop him immediately, and Albert promises his father that he will teach Joey how to plow. Only then does the father's anger gradually subside. The next day, Albert goes to the stable. He first puts his own neck into the collar to demonstrate, showing Joey that it will not hurt him. This time, Joey seems to understand his intentions and no longer resists as Albert fits the collar around his neck. Albert then leads Joey to the field. Hearing the news, the landlord arrives to watch the spectacle. He mocks Ted relentlessly, but Ted remains unmoved, firmly believing his son will succeed. To stand in solidarity with Joey, Albert even puts a collar around his own neck before directing the horse to start plowing. Yet Joey remains completely still. Albert has no choice but to whip him with a stick. The sudden pain drives Joey to bolt forward, throwing Albert to the ground. Seeing this, the landlord bursts into laughter, amused that anyone would actually try to plow with an inferior thin horse. Neighbors also gather to watch. His mother feels deeply humiliated, but Albert is not one to give up easily. He struggles to his feet and continues directing Joey to plow. Yet, even after running for a long time, Joey has not even managed to sink the plow into the ground. Everyone thinks Albert is wasting his time. Suddenly, rain begins to fall, and the onlookers scatter to seek shelter. But to Albert, this is a blessing, as the rain softens the dry earth. With his eyes shining, he runs toward Joey. Perhaps sensing his master's deep yearning, Joey plunges the plow deep into the earth at Albert's firm command. The soil churns up in waves, reviving the family's hope for life. Just at this critical moment, a massive boulder appears in their path. Albert tries to guide Joey around it, but the momentum drives the plow straight through, splitting the boulder in two. This breathtaking sight draws the scattered neighbors back to witness the miracle created by the horse. Watching her son push himself so relentlessly, the mother's face fills with heartache and tenderness. The landlord can only leave in disappointment in his carriage. Meanwhile, Albert continues to sweat in the field. By sunset, the once hard ground is fully plowed into fertile farmland by Joey. But Albert is exhausted, collapsing onto the ground. His mother and a friend quickly help him into the house. She uses strong liquor to disinfect his shoulders, but the smell of alcohol instantly repels Albert. In his memory, his father was always drinking either drunk or on his way to buy alcohol, and the family's decline seemed closely tied to it. However, his mother then digs out several medals from a pile of old belongings. It turns out his father was once a distinguished cavalryman, yet he took no pride in it, casting his medals aside once the war ended. To him, war was an evil that victory could not wash away, leaving him to drown his sorrows in alcohol to escape memories of the slaughter. This was why his father was so determined to buy Joey, who was on the verge of becoming a war horse. Albert finally understands his father. His actions today make his mother proud, and she solemnly hands him the regimental pennant that carries his father's honor, symbolizing inheritance and hope. Afterward, Albert spends almost every day with the horse. To prove Joey is a legendary steed, he trains him to run to him at the sound of a whistle. At first, Joey does not react, but Albert does not lose heart, patiently approaching Joey to explain the meaning of the whistle before backing away to blow the familiar sound again. Surprisingly, Joey miraculously understands this time, trotting joyfully toward Albert. From then on, no matter where Albert is, once the whistle sounds, Joey responds as if called by an invisible force, running excitedly to his side. Even when Albert hides high in a tree, Joey finds his exact spot. As they ride freely across the vast grasslands, Joey's speed matches a speeding car. Seeing this, the landlord's son refuses to be outdone and steps on the gas, prompting Albert to push Joey to chase. Surprisingly, Joey is even faster. However, due to continuous heavy rain, the farm yields no harvest this year. To survive, the father has to take Joey to the market to sell him. When Albert rushes to the market, he sees the military recruiting war horses, and his father has already agreed on a price with an officer. Albert begs his father to return the money, promising he will earn 30 guineas, but his father's mind is made up. Seeing Joey about to leave, Albert resolutely offers to join the army to fight alongside him, only to be rejected because he is too young. Captain Nichols, who bought Joey, promises Albert that he will take good care of the horse. Seeing that the captain is steady and reliable, Albert relents. At their parting, he ties his father's pennant to Joey, hoping the horse will survive with honor. Once Joey becomes the captain's mount, his extraordinary abilities are instantly put on full display. During a charge drill before heading to the front lines, the commander gives the order and the cavalry charges forward. The captain and another rider are neck and neck. At first, the other rider's horse, Topthorn, takes a commanding lead, but Captain Nichols remains calm, guiding Joey to bide his time before launching like a bullet, gradually overtaking Topthorn to win the race. Soon, the commander receives orders to ambush the German forces. Early the next morning, the cavalry regiment hides in the tall grass. At the commander's signal, they launch a surprise attack on the German camp. The watching German soldiers notice the threat too late as the British cavalry sweeps through the camp like a storm, cutting them down. However, this battle is to be the cavalry's final glory. Retreating into the woods, the German soldiers set up heavy machine guns. They open fire from the ground, and in a barrage of gunfire, the British cavalry is swiftly decimated. Captain Nichols is killed in action. Only Joey, with his incredible speed, manages to dodge the bullets and escape. The British commander is captured, realizing in that moment that the era of cavalry is over. After the smoke clears, the German officers decide to keep the surviving horses, provided they accept the heavy collars of draft horses. Topthorn resists the collar at first, but Joey steps in to show him how. Seeing this, Topthorn calmly accepts the harness. The soldiers marvel at Joey's intelligence, and one gently removes the pennant from Joey's harness, keeping it. The older brother, Gunther, is kept behind due to his skill with horses, while his 14-year-old brother, Michael, is ordered to the front lines. Gunther reluctantly hands the pennant to his brother, praying for his safe return. But haunted by his promise to their mother, Gunther takes Joey and Topthorn to catch up with the marching column, pulling his brother from the ranks. Under the cover of night, the brothers ride until dark, finally hiding in a windmill. They dream of returning home after the war, but the young boys do not realize that desertion is a capital offense. The Germans track them down that very night. Gunther fails to keep his promise to their mother. The rotating sails of the windmill mask the sound of their execution, leaving the two horses abandoned by the structure. The next day, Emily is thrilled to find two horses at the farm. She rushes over with buckets of food. Emily's parents were killed in the war, leaving her to live with her grandfather. She excitedly tells her grandfather about the discovery and names the horses. However, her grandfather looks grave, forbidding Emily from riding them. Her parents were cavalry riders, and he does not want her to suffer the same fate. But Emily views the horses as a gift from heaven, caring for them daily. One day, German soldiers suddenly arrive. Her grandfather hurries her to hide the horses. The soldiers sweep through, taking food and even clearing the vegetable patch. Before leaving, they declare that future harvests must be prioritized for them. Fortunately, they show some restraint and leave Emily alone. On Emily's birthday, her grandfather gives her a special gift, a saddle. Eagerly putting it on Joey, Emily tosses the pennant back to her grandfather and rides freely across the hills. But as time passes and Emily does not return, her grandfather feels a sense of dread and calls out her name. Sensing the danger, Topthorn charges after Emily. When her grandfather arrives panting at the top of the hill, his heart breaks to see Emily surrounded by German soldiers. He begs them to spare her, but the soldiers forcibly confiscate both horses. Emily watches them leave, devastated. Once the soldiers are gone, she angrily blames her grandfather for his weakness. Her parents were killed by the Germans years ago, yet her grandfather did not stand up to avenge them today, making her think he is a coward. But her grandfather tells her that bravery takes many forms. A soldier's charge is brave. A mother bringing life into the world through pain is brave. And his bravery is protecting his only living relative. His words cut through the girl's anger. Tears stream down her face, having never realized how deeply her grandfather loves her. The confiscated horses are forced by the Germans to haul heavy artillery. A soldier notices Topthorn's leg is injured, and pulling the heavy cannons would be a death sentence. But the officer shows no mercy. Joey suddenly breaks free and steps to the front, offering to pull the heavy gun himself. Seeing his friend spared, Joey turns back reluctantly, his eyes filled with sorrow, as if bidding farewell to his only companion. Yet fate gives him no respite. The heavy cannon weighs down on his shoulders, making his body tremble with every agonizing step. He grits his teeth and uses his last ounce of strength to drag the artillery to the hilltop. Waiting German soldiers quickly load the shells, firing a barrage of shells onto the British trenches at the officer's command. Albert, now on the battlefield, is caught in the middle. Though a novice, he shows incredible bravery. But while pursuing an enemy soldier, he falls into a smoke grenade trap. Thick white smoke blinds him, causing temporary loss of sight. Meanwhile, in the German camp, Joey and Topthorn manage to escape with the help of a sympathetic soldier. They do not run far before Topthorn collapses, exhausted. Joey tries to comfort him, but Topthorn can no longer survive this brutal journey. In the glow of the sunset, Topthorn slowly closes his weary eyes. Joey takes one last deep look at his friend. Just then, a British tank rumbles forward, mercilessly rolling over Topthorn's body. Terrified, Joey has no choice but to flee. But there is nowhere to hide in this vast, desolate landscape. He is trapped in a maze of barbed wire, with the tank closing in. In this life-or-death moment, Joey lets out a desperate shriek, leaps with all his might, and clears the tank. But he loses his composure, running blindly across the battlefield like a headless chicken. No matter where he flees, he cannot escape the horrors of war. On this night that could be his last, Joey unleashes unprecedented strength. He races through the fire and wire-strewn battlefield like lightning. But just as he crosses the trenches, on the brink of escaping, his legs get tangled in the barbed wire. He struggles until exhausted but cannot break free from the trap, slowly sinking into the mud with helpless cries. The next morning, as the first rays of light hit the battlefield, British soldiers spot Joey lying in the mud. A soldier calls out to wake this unique warrior, and others join in, their calls echoing. Yet in this tense standoff, any small noise could draw German sniper fire. Surprisingly, a whistle sounds from the German lines, as if calling to Joey as well. Unable to restrain himself, a British soldier raises a white flag and steps out of the trench. Seeing this, the Germans initially suspect a trap and fire a warning shot, but the soldier does not back down. Ignoring his commander's orders, he walks forward, calling out his peaceful intentions. However, in his haste, he forgot to bring wire cutters. As he stands there in frustration, he turns to find a German soldier has appeared behind him, holding the exact cutters he needs. After a brief chat, they agree to free the horse together. The German soldier calls back to his trench, and a moment later, a pair of cutters is thrown out to them. On this war-torn field, a beautiful moment of harmony unfolds as the two enemies work together to snip away the wire trapping the horse. Once Joey is freed, deciding who gets him is tricky. They agree to settle it with a coin toss, which the British soldier wins. Even in the horrors of war, humanity's innate kindness remains. Now they must return to their trenches, for the war resumes in 30 minutes. They shake hands warmly and part ways. Meanwhile, Albert is temporarily blinded but survives. As Joey is brought back, he is led right past Albert. Whispers spread about this horse that miraculously survived no man's land. Hearing the commotion, Albert learns of the legendary horse. But after examining Joey's wounds, the military doctor delivers a harsh verdict. Joey's injuries are severely infected, and with little hope of recovery, it is best to shoot him to end his suffering. The soldiers are heartbroken as the sergeant reluctantly raises his pistol. At this critical moment, a familiar owl whistle echoes through the camp. Everyone turns to search for the source, but sees no one. The sergeant gently readies Joey's head and raises the gun once more. Then, the whistle sounds again. This time, Joey is certain it is Albert. The crowd parts, and all eyes focus on Albert as he gropes his way forward. Joey whinnies and trots to him, reunited at last after surviving endless hardships. The doctor steps in, suggesting any stray horse might respond to a whistle. Although Albert cannot see, he accurately describes Joey's 4 white socks and the white mark on his forehead. The doctor checks Joey's hooves but finds them covered in mud. A soldier quickly brings a bucket of water. As the grime is washed away, 4 white socks emerge. Still skeptical, the doctor wipes Joey's forehead with a cloth, and a white star is revealed. This moving scene touches everyone, and the doctor solemnly promises to do everything possible to heal Joey. Hearing this, a heavy weight lifts from Albert's heart. 3 months later, the war ends. Although it brings the dawn of peace, it also brings new challenges. Though Albert's sight is restored, he faces the crisis of being separated from Joey. The general coldly announces that only officers may keep their mounts. All others are to be auctioned off. Even though Albert's superior tries to plead on his behalf, it does not change the harsh reality. With no other choice, Albert slowly leads Joey out of the stable, his heart filled with sorrow. To his surprise, a crowd has already gathered outside. His comrades, knowing the deep bond between them, have pooled their money together to raise 29 guineas. Yet Joey is as highly sought after as he was years ago, and the price quickly rises to 30 guineas. Just as Albert fears he will lose Joey, a voice rings out from the crowd. It is Emily's grandfather, who bids 100 guineas, declaring he will sell his farm if it is not enough, as he must have this horse. Ultimately, the old man wins the auction for Joey at this staggering price. This outcome catches Albert off guard. He begs the old man to sell Joey to him, even offering to pay double in installments. However, the grandfather refuses without hesitation, explaining that this was his granddaughter's favorite horse, and it is the only gift he has left to give her. His granddaughter had fallen gravely ill months ago, and bringing Joey back is the old man's only hope for her recovery. Hearing this, Albert can say nothing more, but as he turns to leave, Joey breaks free from his reins and runs back to Albert as if to say a final goodbye. This warm sight deeply moves the old man. Though Albert is heartbroken, he gently comforts Joey, holding back his tears to hand him back. To Albert, the fact that Joey is alive is already a blessing from heaven. Watching Albert walk away in sadness, the old man is touched. He steps forward and hands the pennant to him. The kind grandfather, unwilling to separate them, decides to walk away, letting Albert keep Joey. Albert cannot help but ask about the girl's name. Emily must be incredibly kind to have such a kind grandfather. Sometimes letting go is not a real loss, but a way to keep love and memories deep in the heart, leading to a deeper kind of possession. As the sun sets, Albert leads Joey on the long walk home, where his mother is already waiting anxiously outside. Her warm embrace cures all the pain of the journey, healing every physical and emotional wound. Joey's eyes shine brightly, as if untouched by the war, still holding his innocence and strength. As Albert hands the pennant back to his father, the usually silent man pulls him into a tight embrace.